Picture this. You're lost. There's no Google Maps, no cell service to call for help. What do you rely on? Well, for an entire generation of boys, the answer was this book. And it wasn't just a manual for survival, it was a map to a different kind of destination altogether, a way of being. So let's dive into the incredible philosophy of the 1911 Boy Scout Handbook.
Right from the very first page, the book puts its finger on a universal feeling, a knowledge hunger. It describes this deep, gnawing need that boys have to actually understand the world, to know the names of the birds, to read the story and the tracks on the ground, to feel competent instead of confused. This handbook wasn't a list of rules. It presented itself as the cure for that hunger.
And here's the core idea. The skills themselves were almost secondary. Learning to tie a knot or build a fire, that wasn't the end goal. That was just the raw material. The real project was using those skills to forge something much more important: character. This book was a blueprint for a specific vision of an honorable, capable, and self-reliant man. Now, this journey into manhood starts out in the wild, but we're not just talking about camping. It's about learning an entirely new language, a new way of seeing the world. The handbook calls it woodcraft, and this is the foundational grammar for everything that follows.
This is where it gets really compelling. The philosophy behind the skills is what matters. Tracking an animal or identifying a tree wasn't just a hobby, it was training in the art of observation. The book believed that a boy who could learn to spot the subtle clues in the forest would, one day, be able to see the crucial details in a business deal, a moral dilemma, or a moment of crisis.
Let's take a classic example, making fire without matches. I know, it sounds archaic in our world, but the handbook presents this as a profound lesson. You see, you don't just get a fire, you earn it. Through patience, through precision, through understanding how wood and friction actually work, a boy transforms his own effort into a life-giving flame. He learns that competence is something you build, not something you're just given.
Even the simplest skills are framed as tools for creation. A knot is never just a knot. A timber hitch is the first step to building a raft. A clove hitch is the key to making a shelter. Each one is a little piece of applied physics, a small moment of mastery over the world that gives a boy the power to build and to solve problems.
And this contrast really reveals the core ethos. When lost, the 1911 Scout was taught to become his own solution. The fundamental assumption was that you are your own rescuer. It's just a world away from our modern reflex, which is often to simply wait for external help. And the psychological impact of that is profound. It's the difference between cultivating agency and learning helplessness.
But mastering the wilderness? That was only stage one. The true purpose of the outdoors was to serve as a classroom for the soul, a place to forge an internal compass that would guide a boy long after he'd left the woods.
The handbook offers one of the most stark and powerful definitions of character I have ever read. It's not about what you do when people are watching, or the reputation you have. It's about your integrity in that moment of absolute solitude, when no one would ever know. That, the book argues, is your true self.
And these virtues weren't just abstract ideas. They were treated like muscles you had to develop through action. Will wasn't something you just had. It was something you built by making that fire when your hands were freezing cold. Cheerfulness wasn't a mood. It was a discipline, practiced by telling a joke when the rain is soaking your camp. And honor? Well, that was a direct inheritance from the chivalric code of knights. A promise, once given, was unbreakable.
To make all this tangible, the handbook held up Abraham Lincoln as the ultimate ideal. He was the embodiment of the Scout spirit. Here was a man from the frontier, self-taught, who rose from a log cabin to the highest office in the land through sheer force of character, integrity, and a relentless pursuit of knowledge. He was living proof that the path of the woodsman could lead all the way to the White House.
This brings us to the final stage of the Scout's journey. See, a Scout learns self-reliance not to isolate himself, but to become profoundly useful to others. The skills and character forged out in the wild are meant to be brought back and put to work in the service of the community.
The end goal was never to create a hermit who could live alone on a mountain. The ultimate test was citizenship. Could you take your competence, your calm, your resourcefulness, and apply it to the chaos of everyday life to make things better for those around you? That was the real question.
And the book is incredibly specific about this. A scout was expected to be a kind of citizen first responder. Things like stopping runaway horses, preventing panic in a crowd, knowing how diseases spread. It paints a picture of a world where communities really relied on the competence of their members. A scout was expected to be an asset, a problem solver, a point of stability in a crisis.
Okay, so what are the actual operational principles behind this whole philosophy? Let's do a quick accelerated breakdown of the code that makes it all work.
First up, master your tools. An axe in the hands of a novice is a danger, but in the hands of a scout, it's a shelter, it's a fire, it's a bridge. The handbook teaches that your tools are an extension of your own will. And true skill doesn't just make a task easier, it fundamentally changes what you believe is possible. Second, the cure for panic is purpose. When faced with chaos, fear is the default human reaction, but the scout is trained to replace that fear with a procedure. By having a clear, memorized set of actions, you can conquer your own internal chaos and become effective when others are paralyzed. It's a mental model for reclaiming control in any crisis.
Third principle, observe, then act. This is a huge value in the handbook, a mandate for patience. Before you rush into a situation, you have to first learn to read it. Whether it's the tracks in the mud telling a story or the behavior of birds signaling a change in weather, patient observation always comes before effective action. It's about prioritizing understanding over impulse.
And finally, number 4, your body is your most important piece of equipment. The book is incredibly strict about this. Good health, enough sleep, regular exercise, these are not suggestions. They are the non-negotiable foundation of readiness. A scout who can't rely on his own strength and endurance can't truly rely on any of his other skills.
All of this brings us to the final and maybe most important question. Why are we even talking about a century-old book? What possible relevance could it have in our world today?
In an age where any fact is just a click away, where a map of the entire world lives in our pocket, what is the value in learning to navigate by the stars or make fire with a stick? It's a fair question, and I think it gets to the heart of what this book is truly about. The answer is that the handbook was never really about the specific skills. It was about what those skills build inside you. It teaches resilience by forcing you to try and fail until you finally succeed. It builds tangible competence, that deep earned confidence that comes from actually being able to do things. It teaches you to truly see the world, not just passively look at it. And most importantly, it hammers home the idea that your character isn't what you think or say, but the sum total of your actions.
Because ultimately, the enduring legacy of this book isn't a list of survival tips. It's a powerful transformational idea that true capability is not just knowing what to do, but becoming the kind of person who can do it.